Hello and welcome to the next video in our series of videos designed to support you with helping your child read at home. So in this video we're going to move on from lilac books to the next colour band that's pink. This is an example of a pink book, and probably the most frequently asked question we're asked here in reception is, oh, the children have learnt it from memory because it's so repetitive, they're not reading the words anymore. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that now. Now, pink books are great because they've got lots and lots of high frequency words in them. Some of them are tricky words and some of them are words that we see all of the time. So when we read them on sight, it really speeds us up as a reader. Now, also in pink books, you have lots of decodable words, those words that we can sound out and blend those sounds together to read with our phonic knowledge. So just as before, we look at the front cover of the book, but this time for some extra challenge, we're going to start looking at the title. Now, looking at the title of the book and using those picture clues that we've used in lots of skills in our lilac books previously, we're now going to look and see if we can find a word that starts with the initial sound. So for example, in a book like Sam's Pot, like this, we'd be looking and saying, oh, this little boy here is looking at, oh, what do you think he's got in his hands there? A pot. It does look like a pot. Can you find a word that starts with a p sound in the title? Now, when we first open the book, it's important to really point out to your child that we're looking at the text from the left to the right and we're following it with our eyes. But also we use something in Hull called our magic reading finger. And this magic finger is really helpful for us because it points to each word. Now, we point out to the children as we are learning about this that the words are sometimes one letter on their own with finger spaces either side, or a group of letters with no gaps in between and finger spaces either side. That's what we call a word. And this really helps them when they're starting to sound out and recognise those sounds because they know where to start and when to stop. Also, we use more terminology. So building on what we did before, we're going to introduce things like, oh look, there's a capital letter at the beginning of the sentence. At the end of the sentence, remember, we need to stop. That's a full stop. Pointing out more terminology to build up that vocabulary that your little one will be familiar with. After we've pointed those things out, it's then time to look at that text. Now, sometimes you can give your child some clues. Something that I might do with a book like this is to look at the pictures. So we're looking at the text and we're looking at the picture. Now, we could say something really simple here like, oh, what sort of instruction would the little girl be giving to the dog? What would she be telling him to do? Now, quite often, obviously the children might think of the word sit, that's something commonly that we'd say to a dog, and then look and see S for sit, and that's fantastic. So repetition in lots of pink books is very common. It could be something as simple as the car is red, the car is green, the car is blue, and the children can pick up on that language pattern. Now, once they've read the book all the way through, they can then remember that pattern from memory. And lots of parents are worried at this point because they say, well, actually, they're not reading anymore. Now, it's really important because repetition plays a really important role when our children start to learn to read, especially with text. So when we're looking at the text, that repetition gives them that opportunity to learn those high frequency words more quickly. They're recognising them on sight, like we were saying before, instead of having to decode them or read tricky words. Now, they've moved on and they're succeeding as an independent reader, and that's a huge, huge step in their reading journey. We want the children to have a lifelong love of reading, and that's what the repetition can provide them with, the success that they can read a book all by themselves. It's great to be mindful when you're reading with your child which words they have learnt so far out of their tricky words. Now, this is always provided to you on your child's online learning journey, and also we give you those handy paper bookmarks that you can keep with your child's reading book and refer back to. So as they're reading through their book and they get stuck maybe on a word that they can't sound out because of the tricky word, just pointing out to them, oh, that's a tricky word, sometimes can give them the help and that clue to read it all by themselves. Pink books are so easy for the children to relate to. They're great because they're around topics that the children can understand, and that really helps to build on their comprehension of the text, whilst also starting to look at that text and decode those words too. So it's really important in some Pink books, when we are presented with a story or a book about a different topic, maybe something they haven't maybe seen something before, to check their understanding of that word. And a good example of this would be something like, one of the titles of a Pink book could be Abracadabra, and talking about what that could mean, what they might think the book might be about. It might be that they've never come across that word before, so it's always worth checking and making sure that they understand a word before you go further into the text. I really hope you found this video useful, and if you have, please don't forget you can like and also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Hull Church of England Primary School, and you'll get an alert when our next video goes live all about reading red books at home with your child. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Bye bye!